Mr. Speaker, the mandate to speak in this Parliament was first given to me by the people of Dennery North in the general elections of 2011. And in 2016, against the odds, they renewed their confidence in my ability to champion their cause, represent their interest, advocate on their behalf, give expression to their concerns in the Parliament and the wider governance discourse. The people of Grand Riviere, including Montparnasse, Alemon, Tamazo, Dibonnet, Fournier, the people of Grand Riviere and Montpaille, the people of Oleon, Despin, including Montigoubi, Sedini, Laridere, Montfoy, New Jack, the people of Gadet and Tigadet, the people of La Pelle and Larissus, including Tilarissus, the people of Richfort, La Belleville and New Village, the people of Belmont and Dennery Riviere, to include Barbara, Montparnasse, Austin Hill, from Awicet, from Akabu, and Varsity. They, Mr. Speaker, were the ones who gave me the mandate to speak in this Parliament. And it is on their behalf I rise this morning to make a contribution to the debate on the motion that is before us. The government with the worst borrowing record in the history of this country is at it again. Another sitting of Parliament and another opportunity to borrow. This time, $7,945,000 US, Mr. Speaker, which is the equivalent of 213,150 EC dollars. In 4 years, they have borrowed more than $1 billion. In 4 years, Mr. Speaker, this government has borrowed more than $1 billion. And the question has to be asked this morning, what do they have to show for it? Mr. Speaker, I've had 2 terms in the Parliament, and I'm accustomed to debating motions to borrow. Debt is always a point of parliamentary contention. There is always a back and forth. And I recall when I sat on the other side of this chamber, the opposition was quite vocal in denouncing the government and the initiatives for which we came into this chamber to borrow. And Mr. Speaker, you would have thought that upon assuming the reins of government, their posture would have been one where they were going to depart from what they believed at the time was an established norm by the St. Lucia Labour Party administration during the years 2011 to 2016. Mr. Speaker, debt generates a lot of debate, a lot of back and forth, as I said. But the question is, when you borrow, there must be something that you can present to justify the amount of borrowing that you do. And again, Mr. Speaker, I repeat, in 4 years, having borrowed in excess of $1 billion, the question has to be asked this morning, what do they have to show for it? A government that has wasted an entire term, nothing to show for it, misguided priorities. Where is the programming for the people of St. Lucia? What do you have to show for that quantum that you've borrowed in 4 years? And Mr. Speaker, given the astronomical amount over which they've presided, what can I say to the people of Dennery North, and by extension the people of St. Lucia? to justify the amount of borrowing that has been done by this government. They've presided over billions in the budget, and their revenue sources have been bonds, loans in the traditional forms, grants, in excess of 7 billion in 4 years. I have to ask the question, what do you have to show for it? And just 4 days, 4 days shy of 4 years, Mr. Speaker, are we satisfied with the level of delivery and programming that we've seen from this government? The most consultants ever, inflated consulates and embassies, and today we come here to borrow. And today I am expected to come to this parliament and lend support. I'm supposed to adopt a posture where I espouse confidence in the government. I am supposed to stand here today and embrace the all-in concept because we're doing it for the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, I am saying today, on behalf of the people of Denry North and the people whom we represent in opposition, and by extension all St. Lucians, I cannot, Mr. Speaker, come to this chamber and support another motion to borrow. I have no confidence that this government is going to deliver. They did not deliver in the first 100 days. They didn't deliver in the first year. They did not deliver in the second year, and the third year, and the fourth year. Why, Mr. Speaker, would I come here this morning and lend support to another motion to borrow? Mr. Speaker, you would have heard from the leader of the opposition that the road that the Prime Minister mentioned in his preamble is in need of repair. And even prior to now, as far back as 2014, 2015, the St. Lucia Labour Party administration, in recognition of the fact that the road was in an advanced state of disrepair, and the leader of the opposition told you, we engaged OFID, the OPEC Fund for International Development, and we secured financing for the rehabilitation of the road in question. Personnel from OFID were on St. Lucian soil. They came to see for themselves the project for which we were funding, and we were seeking funding and assistance. And they were satisfied, Mr. Speaker, that there was merit in the request that we made. The government changed, and in typical fashion, Mr. Speaker, the project was aborted, and today we are here to borrow. Yes, we recognized the need for repairing that road, but the question is, in the immediate aftermath of COVID, should this project be a priority today? Can it wait? Is this the best use of money now? Is this the best use of money today? $9 million US. At a time when our people are crying out for help. At a time when the government is struggling to meet salary commitments to public servants, Mr. Speaker. The question has to be asked. And if somebody on the other side can convince me that this is the best use of $9 million US, Mr. Speaker, I will concede. But given all what we've heard about COVID,
Honourable Member, just a quick question. You're referring to $9 million. The resolution is talking to 7.9 million.
Oh, sorry.
So you...
Yes, my apologies. I stand corrected, Mr. Speaker. 7.9 million US, which translates to roughly 21 million EC dollars. And I'm asking the question, at a time when we are struggling to meet salary commitments to public servants, is this the best use of that money today, Mr. Speaker? It's a valid question. It is a valid question. Gouvernement qui a venu au Parlement aujourd'hui pour prêter 7,9 millions de dollars américains qui l'ont changé à nous, Mr. Speaker, qui a venu à plus de 21 millions de dollars. Et qui a prêté l'argent ça pour essayer de manger Millennium Highway et puis chimé qui a sorti le sac pour aller juste sous fouiller. Et nous avons dit qu'en opposition, nous d'accord chimé ça a besoin de manger. Et nous avons dit chimé pas taper en vraie condition ça quand le gouvernement va venir en pouvoir. Mais depuis que nous sommes là pour un gouvernement, en 2011 pour 2016, nous avons un problème. Et quand on reconnaît un problème, le gouvernement va approcher au FID, en gros organisation qui n'a l'argent ou ça prêté qui a pour le développement du pays comme cette ici. Et qui ont nous l'argent et que nous déjà mettez en place pour nous arranger chimé ça là. Et Mr. Speaker, les gouvernements changé et puis Flambeau venir au pouvoir, il y a du bout de projet. Et je dis, quand nous tous savons qui ça Covid, j'ai fait cette ici et puis l'autre pays, je me pose des questions. Est-ce que ça c'est plus meilleure manière, le gouvernement ça a servi 7,9 millions de dollars américains en pays pour le moment. Et il a fait ça en l'air, que l'année a pile de difficulté pour payer son vote civil. Nous avons fait ça en l'air que le gouvernement passe à joindre l'argent pour faire l'autre bagaille. Comme dit Mr. Speaker, we have recognized the fact that the road is in an advanced state of disrepair. And of course, the many users of that road would want a better surface. I would want a better surface. But I'm asking the question, can this wait a while longer? How much of a priority should it be now in the scheme of things as they unfold in a post-COVID environment? Mr. Speaker, COVID was cataclysmic, the most disruptive force known to this generation, a global game changer. The Prime Minister himself has likened it to a hurricane, perhaps a Category 5 hurricane, in terms of the changes and the disruption it has caused. It has brought countries to their knees, developing countries, developed countries, first world countries. No country has been spared. It has forced the world, Mr. Speaker, to reboot, as somebody put it. Countries have had to recalibrate, reprioritize. And one of the big debates post-COVID in every corner of the world is whether governments should embark on a program where infrastructure and concrete and steel takes precedence over direct human interventions. And that is the debate we ought to have in this House. Do you spend all that money on concrete and steel at a time when your people are struggling for basic necessities, Mr. Speaker? People have lost their jobs. Morale is at an all-time low. People's confidence has been shattered. And we have a responsibility to those persons, Mr. Speaker, to the citizenry, to restore confidence, to prop morale. People have taken loans and they come to your constituency office and tell you they've not worked for 2 months. They've been laid off and they do not know what the future holds. And I'm not holding anybody in here responsible for that, Mr. Speaker. That is the reality that confronts the world. And St. Lucia has not been spared. And I'm saying, in an environment where you have people who are depressed and who are genuinely concerned, the question has to be asked. Does 7.9 million US dollars have to be spent on a road today? Can that wait? And can those monies be channeled to provide social relief to the people of our country? But Mr. Speaker, we've seen bad decisions. We've seen misplaced and misguided priorities. And COVID is responsible for slowing us down. And during that slowdown, Mr. Speaker, there was an opportunity for introspection. COVID-19 et le coronavirus, ils ont forcé tout pays la terre, et le gouvernement ça a yon, pour juste faire des affaires anti-tac plus slow, ou qu'à move top pressé. Et quand nous avons dit, en tant que COVID a slow nous down, il y a une opportunité pour nous catcher les manières nous faire des bagailles. Nous n'y pouvons pas faire différent. Nous n'avons pas un choix. We have no choice but to begin to do things differently, Mr. Speaker. This COVID situation has provided us with a platform for genuine dialogue. I said this only last week, and in the words of a former Shrewsbury MP, you can't have one club in the golf bag. You have to embrace many, many more. All ideas have to contend. Our suggestions have to be respected, and they have to be valued for what they are. We all come here from mandate from our constituencies, all of us. We are speaking on behalf of our people. Nothing that is said here, Mr. Speaker, is meant to be personal, but these are genuine and sincere concerns. Today, Tuesday, the 2nd of June, 2020, when the world is still stumbling, trying to get on its feet, and when individual countries, Mr. Speaker, are still flat on the ground and don't know how they're going to stand up, I am asking on behalf of the people of Denrinoff, $7.9 million US. Should that go into a road today? Or should that go in the form of support for a lot of people in this country who are disenfranchised, who have been disenfranchised as a result of COVID? Mr. Speaker, I would have had no hesitation this morning. I would have been more comfortable had the Minister for Finance come to seek approval to borrow $7,945,000 US for the reinstatement of the laptop program. And you know why? Because of the disruption I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker. Our children are at the center of it. A laptop computer is an instructional tool today. And across the world, children have to receive the tuition from the comfort of their homes. And when we introduced the laptop program as an administration, not only were we trying to bridge that digital gap, but we understood that in a small developing country like St. Lucia, your ability to use the technology, your ability to resort to technology to get things done was already an imperative, so that the child in a global environment from Japan and Singapore would not have had any distinct advantage over a child from Lapel, Gardet, Olio, or Belmont.
That's right.
And that was the thinking, that was the rationale.
That's correct.
But they came into government and they stopped the laptop program. And to be fair to them, Mr. Speaker, they did not know we were going to have COVID and that our children would not have been able to report to schools. But that is the situation that confronts us today. So had the Prime Minister come in here this morning and presented the motion asking for us to borrow 21 million EC dollars for the laptop program, Mr. Speaker, the member for Denrinoff would have supported it. Had the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, come into this house this morning and he presented a resolution to borrow $7 million US, I would have been more amenable. I would have been more amenable had he reintroduced or reinstated the distress fund. And the distress fund was just a little $400,000, $500,000. That's the same amount that was spent on a swearing-in ceremony. And you know what has happened, Mr. Speaker? Just during this state of emergency since COVID, we have had several fires affecting the people for whom the distress fund was first implemented. Je peux dire bon matin, that si le gouvernement est venu au Parlement pour prêter l'argent, 7 millions de dollars américains, pour mettre laptop programme VIE à l'école, moi, je suis ici porté. Et je crois que tout le monde façade ça est ici porté. Et je dis aussi, Mr. Speaker, that si le gouvernement est venu ici à bon matin pour prêter l'argent, pour mettre distress fund dans VIE, moi, je suis ici porté. Just in this COVID period, we have had several fires. And when you read the headlines, on Thursday, May 14th, mother and children homeless after Cicero fire. At least 3 people made homeless by Leclerc fire. And there's so many others, Mr. Speaker. And that distress fund, I saw people from my constituency benefiting firsthand from that particular social facility. Mr. Speaker, I've given the story of a gentleman in my constituency called Shat, William O'Culey, when his house was gutted and burnt to the ground. He didn't have anybody to turn to. He didn't have insurance. He had no steady job, but he was able over time to accumulate sufficient plywood and building material to give himself and his children a shelter. And he got the distressing call. He was in the garden. By the time he got to Belmont, the house was burnt to the ground. And he cried like a baby because he did not know how he was going to recover. And as the parliamentary rep, I made representation on his behalf to the then Prime Minister. The fire service had to provide a technical report, and all the other social agencies had to come on board. And today, thanks to the distress fund, he has a roof on his head. And for every single member of parliament, between the period 2011 to 2016, who was confronted by situations like the one I just described, their constituents, and indirectly they benefited from the distress fund. So I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that this 7 million US that we are borrowing for the Millennium Highway, had it been for the distress fund, I would have supported it. I would have supported it. Mr. Speaker, if the Minister for Finance, notwithstanding the concerns I've expressed about the borrowing, had come to this house this morning seeking approval of Parliament for 7.9 million US to strengthen the banana management unit under the Ministry of Agriculture, I would have supported it. If the money was being borrowed this morning, Mr. Speaker, to hire a crop protection officer so that when our fruits have been cultivated here, packaged, transported to Barbados, they would not have been rejected, I would have supported money for this. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that the Millennium Highway, as it is in a chronic state of disrepair. It has been the subject of laughter. It has been a subject in theatrical presentations. And I think it is the popular group, Chekapesh, who said that we have a roller coaster ride. You just have to drive on the Millennium Highway. We all recognize, and I said as far back as 2014, 14, and 15, not only did we recognize that the road was in a poor condition, we actually took measures or steps as an administration to try and get the road repaired. But COVID, as I said, being the global game changer that it is, has sent us back to basics. It has asked us to reprioritize. And the question is being asked today, is this the best use of 7.9 million US dollars today in St. Lucia? At a time when we cannot reinstate the distress fund, we cannot provide laptop computers to our children, banana farmers cannot get compensated adequately for their efforts. Public servants are at edge and the government is under a tremendous amount of stress to pay public servants. Is this the best use of that money today? Je me pose la question. Le gouvernement venu pour 7,9 millions d'armes américains. Qui a changé, c'est 21 millions de dollars cette ici. En tant que le gouvernement passe à maman l'école laptop. Maman l'école passe à l'école pour teacher instruire que vous avez fait avant. Vous pouvez rester caillou et que vous pouvez instruire à les computers, laptop et phone. Et que la majorité de maman c'est ici par les laptops. Si le gouvernement est venu ici à bon matin, et dit qu'il aura prêté pour bailler toute maman c'est ici laptop, moi je vais supporter. Si le gouvernement est venu ici et dit qu'il a calculé, il a fait les ouais, qu'en 2016 pour 2020, il a tiré distress fund, ce qui a été là encore qu'à joindre si pour si caillou brûlé et brûler l'autre accident de bail qui fait et qu'on passe en des corps. Si vous avez venu ici à bon matin pour prêter 7,9 millions de dollars américains, pour ça, je vais supporter vous, Mr. Speaker. Si le gouvernement est venu ici à bon matin et dit nous avons coûté l'opposition, nous avons coûté les femmes, nous avons coûté l'autre monde technical, et bon matin nous avons dit que nous avons fait les ouais, et nous avons prêté l'argent pour bailler une femme en figue, plus pour planter figue et pour vendre figue, je vais supporter ça. Mais je vais dire, Mr. Speaker, même comme on est monde qui ont des machines eux-mêmes, private vehicle owners, You have minibuses who use the Millennium Highway. Of course they need a break. I know several drivers from my constituency and those who ply the Vieux Fort route. They do not use the Millennium Highway anymore. They prefer to go through the Mon. And that is consistent with what the leader of the opposition said, and I reiterated, that the road is in an advanced state of disrepair. But nobody knew COVID was coming. We did not see it on the horizon. It came like a thief in the night. And it is forcing us to rethink how we do things moving forward. And this can never be a priority. In as much as I empathize with the bus drivers, the private users of this road, the question has to be asked, is this the best way to use that money today? Mr. Speaker, I cannot go to my constituency this evening and tell my constituents of La Pelle that $9 million or $7 million US dollars has been borrowed, and as a consequence of that, your road will be fixed. I cannot go to Oleon and Gadet and tell the elderly lady that she will no longer have to walk to the Gap to get a shuttle to go to the Richmond Health Center because the Larissus Health Center will be reinstated. I can't, Mr. Speaker. I can't. And that is why I mentioned earlier. Gouvernement n'est pas faire une décision. Est-ce que ça c'est plus bon l'air pour dépenser l'argent en l'air concret et pistil, ou est-ce que ça c'est en l'air qu'on supposé dépenser l'argent et ça nous a créé the provision of social services? Mais ça c'est un gouvernement nous qui met des affaires cheval à tout affaires moun. And I was in Vieux Fort on October the 19th, 2019. Skyless cargo, a McDonnell Douglas MD-11 aircraft. Mr. Speaker, big plane. And for the average person who's listening, it is longer than the Virgin Atlantic aircraft that comes here, the 330. That should give you an indication of the size of that aircraft. And I have a passion for aviation. There's two things that fascinate me. Yes, I've learned from my colleague from the Army. Mr. Speaker, I saw this aircraft, and as I always do when I'm in Vieux Fort, I pull out my camera. And I wanted to take photos, and I studied the aircraft to see what was there. And then I saw they were lowering the cargo. And then, Mr. Speaker, I saw the horses coming out. I saw immigration, police immigration vehicles. I saw SSU vehicles in the vicinity of the airport. Right there, Mr. Speaker. Horses. And I've been told, and I'm prepared to sit down if anybody can say something to the contrary, that it costs more than $500,000 for this plane to have transported horses from the US to here on the International Airport. And we cannot reinstate a distress fund, and a lot of you on this side represent rural constituencies. Mr. Speaker, I've said before, I understand collective responsibility, but there are times when you have to denounce wrong, and you have to speak out against it. That could never be right in St. Lucia. For us to have $500,000 being spent for an aircraft to transport horses into this country, and we cannot reinstate a distress fund. We cannot provide laptop computers to the children of this country. We cannot compensate farmers when they have toiled hard and they've sold their food. Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
I remember.
My colleague is misled in the House. I mean, I like it, but I cannot stay here for my colleague to mislead the country, to give the impression that the government paid $500,000. You said it. I never said it. That's what you're saying.
Honorable member.
You must stop that.
Honorable member. Honorable member. Honorable member. Yeah.
I never said that.
Honorable members. Yeah. Honorable members, I would have interjected, Honorable Member, because I think you were taking the argument to the extreme. I have no issue if you're saying that there are alternative means of spending but you are now stressing or going beyond, I think, the leeway I should give you. Yeah, he did not say that the government spend the money, whether he inferred it or he didn't actually use the words. But honorable member, be careful how you tread, okay? Because you do not want anybody to believe that you're saying.
Mr. Speaker, I was very careful with my words. I came here at previous sittings of this House.
On a point of order. The member,
Yes,
yes, my colleague stood up, but I wanted to stand up. The member challenged any member on this side of the House to stand up and refute what he's saying there, and he said he's going to sit down and listen. So I'm doing that right now, Mr. Speaker. If the member is
honorable member,
I am standing up on the point, Mr. Speaker, that the honorable member said that he is challenging anybody on this side to stand up and question what he said there.
The amount paid.
And I am saying, Mr. Speaker, if an individual pays money for them to bring their plane to St. Lucia, what is that to the business of this honorable House or to the government of St. Lucia? If the member wants to use that as a point of argument about the borrowing and what he would support and what he would not support, Mr. Speaker, then I want to know the correlation between the expenditure that he is mentioning there and the relation to the bill, because, Mr. Speaker, note his words. The $500,000 could have been used for the distress fund. How is that not implying?
Honorable member, so accepted, and that is the ruling I was making to the honorable member. He may be inferring, he may have not said it directly, that the 500 came from government purses too, but yes. So honorable member, again I'm saying, be careful with your words. Again, I have allowed you to go so far, but I think I would have pulled you back anyway because you've gone to find my opinion. I understand you want to make an argument that the 7 million can be spent, but when you now move into the horses and implying other things, then you cross in that threshold. Remain on track. In aviation, remain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that can easily be refuted.
Don't say horses, just say shoe valve.
But Mr. Speaker,
The horses, that's the problem.
we all know,
Just say shoe valve.
we all know, Mr. Speaker. Do I have the floor, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable member, continue.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that government sets the tone in any country. And I'm saying here this morning, as I will say anywhere else, once I am speaking on behalf of the people of Denver North, that in a country where $500,000 is being spent on the transportation of horses, Mr. Speaker,
From the United States.
from the US to Hiranura, I'm saying at the time when this is being done, the wrong signal is being sent.
And given a police guard.
The wrong signal is being spent.
They give them a
And I said, Mr. Speaker, in my preamble, that this is a government of misguided priorities.
Yeah, man, they get a horse
And-
the police escort.
And Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, again, Mr. Speaker, I have to stand on the point.
Honorable member. Let me. Honorable member, continue. I'm monitoring what you say.
thank you.
But Mr. Speaker, you have to have my point of order, Mr. Speaker.
If it is on the same point about the horses and the 500 million,
My
I
point
am
of-
handling this one. Yes. Continue, honorable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, je regarde bon matin, that gouvernement, ça a jamouché nous en tant qu'il passé, pour débuter ça, il venir en office. Il pas ni priorities li direct. Except pour les autres, ça la bon matin. Je ne suis pas confortable qu'à venir ici et puis qu'à supporter l'émotion que le gouvernement voulait prêter 7 millions d'Américains pour faire chimie. Je regarde l'année plusieurs exemples. Depuis que le gouvernement venu au pouvoir, côté gouvernement, Jamouché, n'a pas qu'à faire ça ici, posé faire. Et moi, j'ai une difficulté avec ça. Et moi aussi, dit Mr. Speaker, dans l'heure où on est dans un pays, et moi, je jamais dit que c'est le gouvernement qui fait. Là où on est dans un pays, qu'on a une manière souvent taper traité, ou pas de confiance dans là où vient ici, et qu'on a une émotion comme ça, ou qu'on a supporté. Parce que je ne peux pas ça à la constituency, et puis, je de nous, qui manière ça a un bénéfice pour vous. And that is my argument, Mr. Speaker. I have said before, nobody in here, the 17 of us, and we have a full house today, is responsible for COVID. We did not see it coming. I'm not even sure we have an appreciation of the impact of COVID. And all I'm saying is that with the little resources that are available to us, whether it's by way of cash flow or our ability to borrow, we have to rethink, we have to objectively engage people on how that money is supposed to be spent. And that is the crux of my argument this morning. And I will say that on behalf of the people of the North who are still awaiting payment for their bananas. This morning, Mr. Speaker, I got requests for laptop computers. The children want it. The parents want them. And I can't come here and say that instead of spending the money on the road, which I admit is in a bad condition, that we perhaps can consider laptop. That is not a valid argument. I can't put a case forward and say that even in this COVID period, although not in my constituency, that houses have been gutted by fire and people do not know who to turn to because they don't have insurance. I can't say that here. I can't say that my banana farmers or the ones in my constituency, they continue to toil, and these days they're battling a very, very difficult drought to produce. And when their fruits reach Barbados, Mr. Speaker, it has to be rejected. I can't ask that instead of putting 7 million US in a road, perhaps, I'm not demanding, but I'm saying perhaps we can consider using that to bolster the banana management unit. Masadiza? Masa DOG government can make $7 million $.
Honorable member, you've said that. And I'm not stopping you. You've said that.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, this parliament is a place where we're supposed to come and speak freely on behalf of the people who sent us. I will not do like some. I'm not going to be warming up chairs in this parliament for long hours. I will not. I will speak. It would be a dereliction of duty. If I have the issues, I discuss them on the street corners in my constituency. I discuss them on constituency day. I discuss them when I meet my people at the bakery and elsewhere, and then come here, Mr. Speaker, and just take an overdose of Mumu tablet and not speak. I'm speaking.
Yeah, horses before
I'm speaking.
Horses before people. Speak.
And I will not be silenced, Mr. Speaker. I will speak within the confines of the standing orders, and I will make my point. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that with the Millennium Highway and the West Coast Road, the arrangement was already there. The government did not honor what they found when they came into office. The arrangement that we had with OFID. They suspended the project. And today, amidst COVID, when the Prime Minister has engaged almost every civil society organization, trade unions, churches, whoever, to try and get them to understand the impact of COVID. And Mr. Speaker, as I've said, COVID exacerbated what was already a bad situation. But whether you were well placed prior to COVID or you were not on solid grounds, as was the case with us in St. Lucia, it has made the situation worse. And I'm not going to fault the Prime Minister or anybody for that. All I'm saying is that the government must make provisions for expression of alternative points of view to what they bring here and what they're proposing. And our position is not predicated on malice. We want to see St. Lucia do well. But we want to, but some persons believe that once you come here and you have a position that is contrary to what they are advocating, you are not for the good of this country. That is not consistent, Mr. Speaker, with progressive thinking. And so, Mr. Speaker, I am saying, yes, the road is in a chronic state of disrepair. The Millennium Highway has been so for a while. And I, like a lot of St. Lucians, Mr. Speaker, want to see that road get some attention. But I'm only saying, Mr. Speaker, and asking the question, is that really a priority today? Can that wait? Can we put the money, I have to repeat it for repetition for emphasis. Can, Mr. Speaker, that money be put to help families that have been displaced and affected by COVID? Can it, Mr. Speaker? This is my argument. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying on behalf of the people of Denry North that I am not convinced, in as much as I understand the need for the repairs, that this is the best time to put $7.9 million US into the rehabilitation of this road. If I can be convinced otherwise, Mr. Speaker, so be it. But as it stands, and given the information that I have, the dynamics that I confront every day on the ground in my constituency and elsewhere in this country, I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, perhaps the government can reconsider the timing of this project. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.